What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Duke Wisdom Podcast. It's good to have you guys back for the second episode this week as we continue to push out the 2-episode-a-week content from this point forward. So I told you guys, if you listened on Tuesday, what this one would be about. I'd be going through my official ACC standings, which I think I gave sort of a rough rundown of earlier, maybe in August. And then I'm also going to break down my official student media poll preseason ballots for men's and women's basketball. And then we'll dive a little bit into a preview for the Villanova secret scrimmage at the end. I'm not going to get too deep into that because, ultimately it is just a secret scrimmage. But I'll be talking about it on Tuesday, next Tuesday, I'm sure, talking about what went down there. And hopefully we'll have the stats like we did from the Houston secret scrimmage last year. I mean, if you looked at the Houston secret scrimmage, it looked like Ryan Young and Mark Mitchell were going to be the best players on the team. And I think at that moment, the two of them were some of the most prepared scorers on the roster. And that's what it looked like in all of their scrimmage videos that they put out in the summer last year as well. So I think the guys that look good in those scrimmages that are ready scorers, those are going to be the guys that put up the points in that secret scrimmage against Villanova. I'd expect it to be a lot of returners leading the way in scoring, but I could always be wrong about that. Anyway, let's get down to business. Let's get down to what's happening. ACC tip-off was today for men's basketball, and things were said I haven't had a whole lot of time to review exactly what was said by Kyle, Tyrese, Jeremy, and Coach Shire yet, but I do know that the ACC commissioner talked about expansion, and he said a lot of things about expansion, but one thing that really stood out to me was the ACC tournament for that season. They said they have not come to a conclusion about how to structure the ACC tournament, that he doesn't want to add another day to the ACC tournament, and that they're right now considering that every team won't be invited to play in the tournament, that there might be some sort of threshold that they'd have to meet to make it in. And I got to talk about that for a second, because I really just don't agree even a little bit that they should leave teams out. I mean, the whole point of the ACC tournament is like, it could, everybody gets a shot. The thing that makes it appealing is the worst team could feasibly make the NCAA tournament. And that's, and I think there's a pretty simple fix to this. 18 teams, you play this structure, it remains is it a 5-day tournament now? Yeah, it remains a 5-day tournament. If you play the bottom 12 teams play day one. So basically the 7 seed plays the 18 seed, and then they'll play the winner of that game will play the winner of the 10 seed and 15 seed, who will play day one. The 8 seed and the 17 will play, and then the 9 seed and the 16 will play. The winner of those two games will play the next day. And then the 12 and 13 will play, and the winner of that will get the 5 seed, which has a first round bye. And the 11 and 14 will play. Winner of that gets the 6 seed, who has a first round bye. That might be very complicated, so I'm going to break it down in a lot simpler terms, which I probably should have done to begin with. Basically, the top 6 seeds have at least a first round bye. 7 through 18 play day one. That's 12 teams playing 6 games, which would probably start at like 10 a.m. You'd probably see a 10 a.m. game, and then a noon game, all times Eastern, of course, and then a 2 p.m. game. And then maybe take like an hour break after that one, start back up at 5, and then 7, and then 9. Play those 6 games. You could even probably start at 11 and push it back to the last game starting at 10 p.m. So you've got those 6 games day one. Then the 5 seed and the 6 seed have a first round bye. And then the top 4 seeds have a 2-round bye, same as always. And if you do the 12 teams day one and you have the 2 teams with a bye, it sets up the 8 teams in day 2 like there's always been. And then those teams will create an 8-team quarterfinal in day 3 like there's always been. And it'll play out exactly the way it always has from that point forward. And I think it fixes the problem, and it creates a kind of a mega day on day one that's intriguing. I think it's interesting to me. I think it works, and I think that's certainly the way that they should do it. If that's hard to follow, I will post a graphic of what I think the ACC tournament should be soon on Twitter, I'm sure. But I wanted to get my 2 cents in about that. And kind of related to that topic, I'll head into my ACC standings. So let's jump right into the team that I have in last. So 15th is Notre Dame. Not even a single doubt in my mind, it's Notre Dame. They landed J.J. Starling last season, but that one escaped them. He ended up transferring out and joining Syracuse, who has another first-year head coach. Well, first-year head coach of the program. That Syracuse has an actual first-year head coach. Notre Dame just has a first-year head coach there. Mike Bray retires. There's not a whole lot to like it at Notre Dame anymore. Cormac Ryan transfers. There's just not much going on. They're not going to be anywhere near the tournament. 14. Speaking of nowhere near the tournament, Louisville. Louisville's 14 for me. Come on, 4th worst record in Division I last year. Kenny Payne picked up 2 pretty solid top 30 recruits, and then he lost one of them in Trenton Flowers, who just dipped out before the season started to go play professionally. I feel for him, and I feel for Nolan Smith over there at Louisville, but I don't see things improving by very much at Louisville this season either. At 13, Georgia Tech. I don't think I really need to say a whole lot about Georgia Tech. They did replace Josh Pastner. They got Damon Stoudemire coming in to coach this season, so that could be interesting. But let's be honest, there's not a lot of notability for this Georgia Tech team. At 12, I got Boston College. They get the nod over Georgia Tech for me because they're bringing Quentin Post back, and he was a really solid scorer last season for the Eagles, so that's something to look out for there. I really thought that Boston College was really underrated last season, man. And in my preseason ACC standings, I put them way higher than anyone else. I was like, this is a good team. And I learned my lesson the hard way. Never bet on Boston College in basketball, man. Yeah, I got them 12 now. 11, Florida State. I don't know what happened with Florida State a couple years ago. They just, I guess I kind of do. Injuries sort of imploded everything at Florida State. They had top 25, teams, preseason, or almost top 25 teams preseason there. Heading into 2022, a lot of depth, a lot of injuries. They end up missing the tournament, and things just haven't been the same for Florida State since then. It's a shame to see them in the bottom third of the conference consistently like this. But number 10, I got Syracuse. Boeheim's gone probably a little bit. He probably overstayed his welcome a little bit. Well, not his welcome, but he hasn't been Jim Boeheim for a little while. But after 47 years, he's out, and they got Adrian Autry in. J.J. Starling transfers in. They still got Judah Mintz, and that's really interesting. That's a really interesting kind of backcourt pair there. And I don't know. I'm intrigued by Syracuse, but it being first year without Boeheim and everything, I think this team could easily finish higher than this. I think they could finish anywhere from 6 to 11. I went for the lower half. They might prove me wrong. We'll see. Tonight I went for our guy Jeff Capel at Pitt. He had the season he absolutely had to have to save his job last season, and he sure did. He sure did get a good one, man. Making the NCAA tournament, getting the 5 seed in the ACC tournament. Duke beat the snot out of him in the ACC tournament. But a really great year. They bring Blake Henson back, and he's one of the best players returning in the ACC. He was second team all-conference last year. Federico's back, or Federico squared, as I like to call him. They could finish higher as well, but I don't know. It just feels like they're not going to be able to replicate the same exact success that they had a season ago. So I got them at 9. At 8, I got Wake Forest, and I really like man. Let me tell you, back-to-back years. There's a guy in the ACC Player of the Year race, or literally the ACC Player of the Year, and Alondis Williams and Tyree Appleby. I don't know what it is about Steve Forbes, that he's just able to go out there and find some transfer to be one of the highest scoring players in the ACC. But it's now a talent of his. And in my personal opinion, he has found the best one that he has found yet in Hunter Salas. Hunter Salas is a former 5-star player from Gonzaga. Didn't pan out exactly how he wanted to at Gonzaga. Now he's at Wake Forest. But let me tell you, on paper, he's way better than Williams or Appleby. And he has the potential to be, in my personal opinion, to be in the ACC Player of the Year race, just like they were. And I ultimately think he will be. I'm really high on him. And, you wish if they had held on to a couple more guys that they lost. They could finish higher than this. They're Wake Forest. They could also finish a lot lower than this. I think they're an interesting team. I think the middle of the ACC is interesting because it could work out in a lot of different ways this season. I think, honestly, 6 through 10 is really malleable on this list. At 7, I went with a pick that is just like a full-on respect pick. My pick at 7 is Virginia Tech, and it's not really because Virginia Tech's got that stellar of a roster. I mean, they've got Padilla back. They got Hunter Couture back. Duke fans punch in the air about that. Absolute freaking menace when he plays Duke. But I know Duke fans don't want to hear that. But the good news is, Mutz is gone. They don't have the personnel that they had in previous seasons. But, man, they're well coached. They hit a bunch of threes. They play modern ball, and I like them at 7. At 6, I'm going with the NC State Wolfpack. Now, a big reason they lost Darkel Joyner to Quavion Smith. That's going to be really difficult for them to replace, but they are bringing in DJ Horn, who's going to be a really good player who should score in bulk. They're bringing him in. They've got Casey Morsell back, and they got MJ Rice from Kansas, which is really interesting. MJ Rice only averaged 2 points at Kansas, but I think he's going to play a good role at NC State. But big reason is DJ Burns is back, man. DJ Burns, good luck to any center in the league stopping DJ Burns from scoring. I mean, he's not the best defender in the world, and that's why he's not the ACC Player of the Year. Oh, I mean, I might eat my words on that. Maybe he will be. Never say never. But he's such an offensively talented big that he opens up spots for guards on the wings and, driving lanes and stuff like that. And so they're an interesting team. NC State's only one of 6 teams that I think can make the NCAA tournament. I don't know if they will, but I think that they are the last team that I'm comfortable saying can make the NCAA tournament on this list. 5, I've got Virginia. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't know how to feel about Virginia. You got Virginia ranked preseason. Good on you. You did it just because Tony Bennett's coaching the team. They got Reese Beekman back. I got some strong opinions about Reese Beekman. I'm not going to get into those opinions. Well, I'll get into them a little bit. Why not? Beekman has been heralded as there have been some outlandish claims from the Virginia fan base about how good of a defender Reese Beekman is. I think Reese Beekman is a very good defender. I think he will be an NBA draft pick. But he averaged 10 points last year. I don't have faith in Reese Beekman's offensive ability as the first option. Not that much faith, at least, to rank him nationally. And I mean, they were Virginia fans talking about how he should have easily won Defensive Player of the Year with Mark Williams 2 years ago. He's a very good player, but he's not good enough to be the best player on a really good Virginia team. This is going to be one of the worst Virginia teams we've seen in a while. I mean, throw that right there and throw them in there with 2022 that missed the tournament. This team in Virginia has a good chance to miss the tournament. Ultimately, I don't know that they do because the ACC is so bad that all they have to do is not lose to bad teams and do all right in the non-conference play, and they'll make the tournament probably. And they're Virginia, so they can do it, man. They turn players that shouldn't be doing anything into all ACC players. You got to respect the program. Got to respect Reese Beekman. He's probably going to end up first team all ACC. And it is what it is. Moving on to 4, and this will make Virginia fans mad. I've got Clemson over Virginia. Yeah, everybody's like, wow, Virginia at 5. Yeah, I've got Clemson. And yes, I know they lost Hunter Tyson. I understand that. Hunter Tyson was very good. PJ Hall is better. I honestly believe that in college. every time Duke played him, at least, PJ Hall was the problem. PJ Hall is a problem. He's a good player. And they also got Joe Girard, man. They got Joe Girard in the portal. That's interesting. Even more shooting. They got Chase Hunter back. This is a team that almost made the almost made the NCAA tournament last season. And they were third in the ACC standings at the end of the year. And so for me, it's like, yeah, they lost their best player. But they brought back a lot. And this is a Clemson program that's been really strong recently. And I think that they are a tournament team. 3, I've got North Carolina. And here's the big separator, the huge separator between 3 and 4. And Carolina should be a lot better than Clemson. And I've got them there. They're nationally ranked. The top 3 are nationally ranked teams for me. Baycott's back. Davis is back. A whole plethora of transfers that can play very versatile roles. Harrison Ingram, a versatile player, defender, could play a lot of the 4 for them. Cormac Ryan coming in as a shooter. And they got Jalen Withers and Paxton Wojcik, James Okonkwo from West Virginia. The freshmen are really good. Elliot Cadeau, Zayden High, especially Cadeau, to be really good, but Zayden High, a very underrated player. I cover this team, and they're a little bit underrated, maybe nationally. They came in at 19 preseason. I don't know. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. Ultimately, I think 3 is the correct place for Carolina at the moment. I think the top 2 teams should be above them, at least preseason, and everyone below them has to be below them. 2, I've got Miami. They lost to ACC Player of the Year Isaiah Wong. I must say, one of the weakest ACC Player of the Year seasons I've seen in a while. But they lost Isaiah Wong and they lost Jordan Miller, 2 huge losses. But still, you've got Norchad Omier back. You've got Nigel Pack back. Wooga Poplar's back, and he should be improving by, pretty drastically. And they stripped their own rival of their best player, got Matthew Cleveland from Florida State. They've been fantastic the last 2 years, Elite 8 and a Final 4 under their belt. I've got no reason to believe that Miami won't be a national contender once again, but I've got them second. And so here in the ACC, and I've got them pretty high nationally. You'll hear that in a minute. At 1, I've got Duke. On paper, Duke should be the number 1 team in the ACC. They're pretty consistently picked as the number 1 team preseason in conference. This year, it's no different. Do they actually win the regular season? Has happened very seldom lately. Only once since 2010. And so do they win the regular season? I don't know, man. That's tough to say. But I think they are the best team in the conference, or should be the best team in the conference. Just so much returning scoring, and Filipowski, Proctor, Roach, Mitchell, Young, and then bringing in such a stellar freshman class as well, that this team is loaded through 2 full strings of players, plus even into the 3rd string. It's just such a deep team, such a good team. Should be a very, very high quality shooting team, and there's a lot to like, and that's why they're number 1 on the preseason ACC standings for me. Now let's head into the student media poll, top 25. So I think this is an interesting thing to dive into.
Want to join a community of Duke accounts publishing news, theories, and predictions on Duke athletics? Join the Duke Wisdom Network. Just go to dukewisdom.org/join network today and fill out the form with your name and social media. Or you can DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram. Become a part of the community of Duke fans publishing their takes today. Again, that's dukewisdom.org/join network or DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram.
So I'll start with my women's basketball poll. I'm not going to get too detailed into this, especially because my poll does not differ very much from the AP Top 25. I actually think they did a much better job for women's basketball than they did for men's. LSU, the defending national champions, at 1. Obviously bringing Angel Reese back, bringing back that supporting cast and everything should lead them to be contending for another national championship. 2, UConn. Paige Beckers coming back from injury. That's big time. UCLA at 3, Caitlin Clark and Iowa at 4. I've got Utah 5. As you've noticed, the only thing I've done is switch UCLA and Iowa from the AP Top 25. Got South Carolina 6, Ohio State 7. Man, Celeste Taylor playing there now. You hate to see her in a different jersey, but wish her success. Nonetheless, then the ACC joins the equation at 8. Went to the Final 4 last year. Virginia Tech, Liz Kitley, the defending ACC Player of the Year. back there in Blacksburg. At 9, I've got Indiana. At 10, Tennessee. Going with Notre Dame at 11, Ole Miss at 12, Texas at 13, Maryland 14. I've got UNC at 15. They brought back a lot of pieces. Deja Kelly, Alyssa Usby. Strong cast there. At 16, I got Stanford, 17, Louisville, 18, Baylor, 19, Florida State, 20, Colorado, 21, USC, 22, Creighton, 23, Illinois, 24, Mississippi State, and 25, Kansas State. Kansas State not ranked in the AP top 25, the only team that I inserted on this list that wasn't already. So that's my top 25 for women's basketball. Duke not on this list, but one of the first few teams out. Hopefully they'll be able to enter much like they did last season. But I think the amount of players they lost was a little just too significant for me to rank them. They're a very young team, and they've got a chance to be good enough to get into the top 25 this year. But we'll see how the season progresses. This team has a lot of talent, a lot of raw talent. They're very young. All right, so let's go into the men's basketball top 25. I did not differ from the AP poll at all in the top 3. I went Kansas 1. I like Kansas there. I think they've got a lot to like about their roster, and more importantly, there's a curse with being the preseason number 1, and I wanted to give it to Kansas. No, not really, but I do think Kansas should be a very good team and a 1-seed contender. They're the number one team for me preseason. I've got Duke at 2, just like on the AP poll. I've talked about what to like from Duke. We talk about what to like from Duke consistently. You guys know what's going on here. Got them at 2. Purdue brought back pretty much everybody from a number 1 seed. They brought back the very dominant national player of the year in Zach Edey. And, well, they floundered in the first round of the tournament against the 16 seed. And that is the only reason why they're not number 1 preseason at AP. And that's the only reason why they're not number 1 for me, because they kind of faltered a lot toward the end of the season. So they're going to have to get back to looking like they did in November of last season for them to be the number 1 team in the country. They probably should be the number 1 team in the country, but they left doubt in everybody's minds at the end of last season, and so that's why they're not. 4 is Marquette, a 2 seed returning pretty much everybody, nearly everybody. Tyler Kolek, preseason first-team All-American. I like the Golden Eagles here. I switched them with Michigan State, who I have at 5, who's an early season opponent for Duke. They were 7 seed last year, went to the Sweet 16, got Xavier Booker, who's the highest-rated recruit they've ever gotten, I believe, since 24/7's been rating recruits. So that's the top 5, and I think it's pretty definitively most people's top 5. And then from that point, I got Tennessee at 6. That is a tough as nails group, man. They don't have any one player that's going to go out there and give you 20 a night, but they're a tough team. They're well coached by Rick Barnes. Duke knows that. You know, they bring the physicality, and for me, this is a team that's in the driver's seat in the SEC, and I moved them up a few spots from the AP poll. I've got Houston at 7. You know, they lost Jarris Walker. They lost Marcus Sasser. Big losses for Houston, but big gains in the transfer portal. Man, did they do a good job at replacing what they lost in the transfer portal. I've got them at 7. We'll see how that works out. Creighton at 8 as well. Both of those are the same as the AP poll. Creighton, a team that made the Elite 8 last season. You know, some big returners there as well, and a lot to like. And then, but I didn't stray away from the AP poll there. I did stray. Here's where I strayed, and you probably already noticed that there's one team. If you're familiar with how the poll shook out for the Associated Press this year, you're probably thinking about, well, there's one team you hadn't named yet. Well, I'm not naming them yet. I got Arizona at 9. Duke's second game of the season. You know, Caleb Love transferred in there. This is a team that's going to be physical, that should be very good, and I think is a bit underrated by people. I think they're gonna present quite the challenge for Duke and Cameron in game 2. 10, I got Miami, man. I think Miami's underrated. This, as I mentioned earlier, this is a team that's been making deep cuts into the tournament. They've got some very skilled players, and they've got an opportunity to win a lot of games in a very weak ACC. I think Miami has a lot of opportunity to make a third consecutive deep push into the tournament. I got them at 10. At 11, I got UConn, and people will say, wow, that's low. Yeah, it is compared to most people, but they're banking a lot on Donovan Clingan, and I think he's very good. He's very good, but they lost their 2 best players from last season that combined averaged 33 points a game, plus Andre Jackson Jr., who is a defensive menace. And I don't think they gained a whole lot back from that team. And let's not forget that they were literally a 4 seed. They weren't a 1 seed. They weren't a 2 seed national champion. They were a national champion, but they were a 4 seed, and they lost a lot and they didn't gain it back. And they're banking a lot on the players returning, getting that much better. I think this is a good team. I think this is a ranked team. I think this is a team that could do a lot worse than 11. Certainly could be better than that. Certainly could be. I don't think I want to put them in the top 10. I gave them, out of respect for being the defending champions, I ranked them 11th. Gonzaga's 12. Some key losses. Drew Timmy's finally not a college basketball player for the first time in 3 decades. They did some very good rebuilding in the transfer portal. Obviously, they're Gonzaga. They're going to win a lot of regular season games. I got them at 12. Let me tell you, man, advanced stats love Baylor. Oh, well, CBS loves Baylor. They ranked them like 4th or something like that, which is crazy. Duke plays Baylor in December. That should be a really interesting game. Ken Palm's got them favored as the number 7 team preseason. So that's very interesting. You know, advanced stats love this Baylor team. They lost a lot, but they replaced it with the transfer portal. And, you know, that's modern college basketball for you. They're 20th preseason in the AP poll. I thought that was too low. I moved them up 7. Advanced stats and CBS would say I needed to move them up a whole lot more. I didn't. I said 7 spots up is more than enough. 14, I've got Arkansas, which I actually think is the same that they had. They bring back some key returners. They're still a young team, but should be very good. At 15, I've got UNC, which is 4 spots up from the AP poll. You know, they reportedly just beat the crap out of Florida Atlantic in a secret scrimmage. And, you know, I talked about what there is to like about North Carolina. I think that they'll surprise people. There's not a huge spotlight on them, not a great amount of pressure on these guys to win, but they're a bunch of players that are hungry to win. 16, I've got Florida Atlantic. Yes, they brought back pretty much the whole team from a Final Four team, but they were a 9 seed. They're still Florida Atlantic. Yeah, they're going to win a lot of games. They're probably not going to lose much, which is why I wanted to start them at 16 and not at 10 or not at 5 or 6 or 7. Because if I start them there, they're going to end up being my preseason number 1 team or something. Or not my preseason, but they're going to be my number 1 team like 4 weeks into the season. And I do not want that. So I made it a lot more difficult for Florida Atlantic to climb up because I genuinely don't think they're going to make a deep run in the tournament again unless they get a pretty easy route. Texas at 17, man, brought in Max Abamus from I hope I said that right. Sometimes I'll butcher pronunciations on here. You guys will have to forgive me. But, you know, from Oral Roberts, they got him to transfer in. He's such a lethal scorer. And they were a really good team, a 2 seed last year. I think, honestly, Texas could be better than 17, but I'm starting them there. I've got USC at 18. Boogie Ellis, man. You know, a lot of people have him a preseason All-American, former Duke commit. Ended up decommitting after Trey Jones announced he's coming back for his sophomore year for 2020. He's still in college. And he's rocking at USC. And then at 19, I got Texas A&M, another Duke transfer there, Henry Coleman. A lot to like. That A&M team was really good toward the end of the season last season, bringing back that supporting cast, and they should be very good. 20, I got St. Mary's, who should win a lot of games in the WCC and should be a big old thorn in Gonzaga's side to win the WCC this year. I like this St. Mary's team. 21, a team that I was less high on than the AP poll, is Kentucky. Some people agree with me. This Kentucky team lost so much from a team that was already only a 6 seed. Yes, they brought in the number 1 recruiting class, but that's not atypical for the recent Kentucky teams. And Kentucky hasn't been real. They had a really good team in 2022 that floundered in the first round. They haven't had a really good team go a pretty far way in the tournament since 2019. And I have my reasons to doubt Kentucky. They've started to look like they're not the Kentucky of old. It's a very young team. It's going to be very difficult for them to be extremely good. I started with doubting them a little more than I usually would for Kentucky, and we'll see if they prove me wrong. 22, I got Illinois. 23, I got Wisconsin, which is the only team not ranked in the AP 25 that I ranked. And I've got them at 23. I got San Diego State, 24. They were, national runner-up last year. They lost some guys. I think 17 was too high for them in the AP poll. I knocked them down 7 slots. And then the perfect segue, my number 25 team is Villanova. I've got Villanova. They were 22 preseason in the AP top 25. and they are Duke's secret scrimmage foe. Villanova had an abysmal season last year. That name brand's really helping them out, getting ranked, helping them out with me. Kyle Neptune now in his second year as a coach is a big pivotal year. You know, they've got some question marks. They want to keep Justin Moore healthy. That's a big deal for them. This is a team that Duke should beat in that secret scrimmage. It is a team that should be a lot better than they were last season. It's a team that should make the tournament. I'm not 100% sure if they really are a top 25 team, but there are some people that really think they should be, you know, in the middle of the pack in the top 25. I'm not one of those people. I left them clinging on to the number 25 rank because I gave them, you know, benefit of the doubt that they have the skill to be a ranked team. Can they put it into practice? And I guess we'll see if that's the case. And if they lose early in the season, it'll be real easy for me to take them out of the top 25. So that's where I land. And, you know, I talked a little, you know, just a little bit about how that secret scrimmage will go. We'll talk a lot more about that on Tuesday. I think it'll be interesting to go into that and see how that goes and who's looking what good and getting buckets for Duke and how they match up with Villanova ahead of, you know, what should be a really, really trying first 3 games of the season for Duke, with Arizona, who's my number 9 team in the country, and Michigan State, who's my number 5 team in the country, in their second and third games of the season. The season is just about upon us, guys. You know, secret scrimmage in 2 days from when this episode drops, and exhibition in 6 days from when this drops. As always, thanks for listening. Make sure to go follow on Twitter. There might be some news dropping tomorrow or Friday. Some pretty big news. So you know, big things happening there, and I might do an emergency episode. You never know. But at the very least, I'll be talking about that news on Tuesday. I certainly believe we'll have that news from a certain guy whose name might rhyme with Looper Flag. We'll have some news there by Tuesday, and we'll be talking about that. One thing I do want to talk about right before I sign off, Patrick Ngongba already established he's announcing his decision November 4th. UConn not a part of that. He's deciding between Duke, Kentucky, and Kansas State on November 4th. Pretty good feeling about that. If you're Duke, that decision coming up at the end of next week. Big recruiting stuff coming up. The season on the brink. So much to be excited about for the Duke basketball season. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to follow on Twitter and Instagram at Duke_Wisdom. Make sure to look into joining the Duke Wisdom Network so you can hop on the pod with us. So you can write some articles and join in on the fun. Subscribe, follow the podcast wherever you do. And I'll talk to you guys Tuesday.